Okay, folks, it is showtime. Welcome to the third and last in the turkey hunting webinar series for 2024, Hunting Techniques and Strategies. As you can see, tonight's panelists are John Henry Harrelson, our District 4 wildlife biologist on hunting and Q&A, Master Officer Eric Gleason, our Law Enforcement Division, Laws, Regs, Q&A, and obviously moi, Hunter Engagement Coordinator, MC Hunting and Q&A. As per the other ones, it's the same drill. Webinar length is 1 hour. It is recorded and will be distributed in equal to or less than 2 weeks. And for folks that missed the beginning, you know, they typically don't see that. I had a bunch of emails. It'd be nice to have people right away, but we realize they get busy. The Q&A length, question and answer sessions, 30 minutes. Questions in writing, topic specific, and addressed at Q&A. And that will be at the very end, not during, or we will not have enough time. Although again, specific to tonight's topic, hunting strategies, skills, you know, we'll kind of have it open a little bit, maybe if somebody has a biology question or, you know, firearms related, but as you likely already know, if you've been attending, those have already been completed. So hopefully we'll stay on topic. We have a lot for you tonight, so, and we don't want to run overtime. We did a little bit last night, but we try to give you the best we can. Chat hand raising will not be monitored again. We want you to focus on the screen, not on writing, unless you're writing questions. And please allow us to cover the material before writing questions, because lots of information, and if you ask questions right up front, we're more or less likely going to be covering it during our webinar. A brief programmatic justification for everyone, the why behind it all, and that's one of the reasons you have programming, or the primary reason. 40 years ago, programming didn't exist between hunting agencies, for the most part anyway. Apply the 3 L's tonight: look, listen, and learn. And as I always say, and you're going to hear it again in another video we have tonight, is between that website and that Regs Digest, you'll have everything you need to know regarding regulations, game lands, licensing, local laws. And so you let your fingers do the walking there first. What you're learning tonight with the skills isn't in there, but everything else is. And again, thanks for joining us. As you can see here, the primarily reason for program, and this is based on every 5-year U.S. Fish and Wildlife Survey, is that hunting has been having a precipitous decline nationwide. And that's what this is about. We tend to look at it holistically. However, we did have an uptick in the most recent 5-year that was released in 2022 at 14.4 million age 16 and older hunted. And that's typically because youth are not surveyed. And you can see that puts us right there in the 1990s, or even a little bit before that. Now, the reality is with that is, you know, is it COVID induced because more people had time to get outdoors and recreate? Is it a trend? We will only know in the next 5 years. So it's good news, but not sure if it's going to last. North Carolina has roughly 700,000 license holders, but the actual participants are about 300,000. And as many of you probably know, you buy licenses for youth, oftentimes a gift or somebody else. So they get, you know, they're in the system. They definitely contribute to the Wildlife Endowment Fund, but it is truly where we get the political support in the active, engaged hunters, and it's less than half at 300,000. When you look at the North Carolina population as a whole, and if you live anywhere near the urban areas or even elsewhere, it continues to grow in this state. Lots of work, people come in, raise families here. And if you look at those lines now, active hunters, license holders, very low. But what is positive for a person like myself that is involved in recruitment, retention, reactivation, is that at least it's relatively stable. Stability is a good thing. We're not worried about getting back. At least I'm not worried about getting back to 1975, 1980 levels when it peaked at about 17.1 million hunters nationwide and roughly 8 to 10% of the population. But we want to at least keep our political support and be stable. So I decided to do the math there, and you can see that ends in 2021, and this information is from our surveys biologist. That in 2021, obviously 300,000 hunters. And if you divide that by the 10.6 million people in North Carolina in 2021. We represent less than 3% of the population overall. There is the concern over, okay, hunting. Who does it? Not many people are participating. Why do we even do it? It's not anything about anti-hunting. It's about just losing by attrition. And we don't want to lose by attrition. We want to keep this active and engaged. And for those of you that already do it, you know what I mean. One of the biggest concerns probably right now is my generation of people. I was born in 1960. Those born before 1947 and 1964 represent the greatest generation of modern day North American hunters of all time, the baby boomers. And we are aging out, and you can see what happens after about age 63, we go off the map. Well, that's a big cohort of people that are going to be missing in not too many years. I always say, I hope I'm around a long time. I want another 60 more years to hunt. But the reality is we won't. And so that's going to leave a big dent. Hence, we want to keep political popularity of hunting. I'm involved in these primary two things, webinars, which are for all skill levels, and the hunting workshops. And as many of you may or may not know, it was called Getting Started Outdoors. We have a name change to Learn to Hunt. A little bit more intuitive. And again, webinars for all skill levels, but the workshops are for those that have never hunted, very minimal experience. And typically we put that around, have not actively hunted for more than 3 years, don't have social support, meaning don't come from hunting families or have friends that hunt. And we also have lapsed in there for hunters, maybe that haven't hunted for a long time since they were maybe young, and also haven't taken like big game for the big game workshops. So we have something for both. And you can get a lot from these webinars, and many of you already know that, and you're going to get more tonight. And for the workshops, it goes back to very basics, because most people that hunt already know how to shoot firearms, already know how to scout for game, already know how to use tree stands, already know how to recover game. So it's for those that really need it. And they are basically experiments to offset, what could be even more participation decline when the boomers exit. This is all my programming. I will send this to you folks when all the webinars are available, because there's going to be one post-webinar survey with drop downs for each one. And to the point, you probably already know about this, but what this does is give you all the dates. Some of you may have them already. And I even have search instructions there that makes it easier, because the calendar typically only shows 4 months out. So you got to search in there for it. But basically 30 programs pretty much going on. We also always need volunteers, especially since I've been expanding the programming. We can always use support of existing hunters. That's where we need the help most, by those that know how to hunt and are willing to give back. And you'll hear a little bit of touch on that at the end. So if you're an interested hunter and or a new person that, hasn't hunted, definitely, enjoy the program and come and help us out. For our first video, and I call it, well, the second video, this is the last video for the series. Maybe have another one next year too. A sequel, scouting, roosting, hunt scenario, decoys, safety. So without further ado, here we go.
No, he's not okay. Come on, you're ridiculous.
Hello, folks. I'm Deke James, Hunter Engagement Coordinator for the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission.
And I'm John Henry Harrelson, District Wildlife Biologist with the Wildlife Resource Commission.
And
we're talking turkey.
Before we get started, folks, I just want to say a couple of things based on a lot of different questions I get asked. What you are going to learn today is some of the how-tos of turkey hunting. But what I always say at programming, it's important to let your fingers do the walking first. Many of the questions I get asked can be solved with this Regulations Digest or on our website at ncwildlife.org, like hunting regulations for turkey, for example, game lands regulations, local laws, among just a few things. So before you head out into the woods and put your boots on the ground, check out the Regs Digest.
Today, we're going to be covering varying topics, including how to scout, where to scout, pros and cons of using turkey decoys, as well as an actual hunt scenario and safety measures to finalize the scene.
Exactly, and including decoy setups, which can sometimes be separate from a hunt. So what do you say we get started? Folks, this is a reenactment of an actual hunt, and I'm pretty sure I heard a gobbler right down over there. The first thing I want to do is get as close as possible to that bird without him seeing me. And since I think he's relatively close, I probably won't be setting up decoys in this case. In fact, I rarely ever use decoys, probably 20% of the times, because I'll strike a bird close. So what we're going to do now is set up. Again, this is a reenactment, and this walking stick is my shotgun. Are you ready? Let's go set up on this bird. First thing I'm going to find is a tree that is relatively close to where I think that bird is going to appear. And I want there to be a break in the topography so that when that bird does finally show himself, he's within killing range of my shotgun, or in this case, a walking stick. And you only know that by patterning your shotgun prior to the season. When you know its maximum effective range, then you know how far you need to set up. So again, as soon as that bird appears and is looking, you want to be able to kill him. Otherwise, he's going to look up, he's going to see no hen, and he's likely to leave. So we're going to set up now. Okay, folks, I'm pretty sure I know where that gobbler is. And right now I'm about 35 steps from where I think that gobbler is going to see me. So within maximum effective range of my shotgun. And before I start calling to him, I'm just going to blow my locator call again, just to pinpoint so I can aim in that direction. You should have gobbled. Let me try it again. All right, there he was. I heard him. So at this point, I'm going to get my face mask up and I'm going to get ready. The first thing I want to tell you about a turkey, you want that turkey to be in a position where he wants you more than you want him. And that's just something that you have to gauge, and here is how. The first call I'm going to make to that turkey, this is going to be a turkey that pretty much says you as a hunter want him more than he wants you. Are you ready? Can you hear him? He gobbled after I called. Let's try it again. That bird is not hot. The best thing you can do is tone down your calling. Don't call loud, and even use natural sounds like raking in the leaves, because turkeys scratch. Less is more in this case. If you pressure this gobbler, he may not even come in, or he may even have hens with him. And those are things you don't know. Now you're going to see the situation where the turkey wants you more than you want him. Hear that? It was right after. In fact, he cut off my call. Let's try that one more time. He didn't even wait. That bird, and there are no absolutes in turkey hunting, he is likely to come in and come in fast. He may not, but that is a bird that is hot as he's ready. He may not be with hens, he may be with hens, but for the most part, he's ready. So now I'm going to get in a position. I know where I hear that bird. I'm going to get the gun up. That's what you want to do. Wherever that bird is initially, point that gun in that direction. And again, I've checked my gun, maximum effective range. I know I can kill him that far if he shows. Just seen some of a tail fan. I just seen him. He's coming up behind that rise. That bird is looking here. See him? See him? See that bird looking? Now the only thing bad about him in that situation is he is in full strut. And the problem with full strut is that you're going to eat pellets if you shoot that bird because his head is so tight to his body. The best thing to do is let him stretch out his neck. So then your full pattern is in the head and neck region and not in the breast. And the simple way you can do that is either with a turkey call or you can make like a putt. I'm on him and I'm not moving. You cannot move. When he pops up like that, you get on him, boom! If you see his head go up, you shoot again. And that's because there's times when just the margin of pellets hit. You don't want that bird regaining consciousness and taking off and flying away. A flopping bird doesn't matter, but make sure his head goes down. After that bird goes down like that, make sure the safety is on the gun, get up, and we'll head towards that gobbler. Okay, folks, this is scene 2. So in other words, we're going back to the same hunt, but something else is going to happen here. So pay attention, because gobblers, especially nowadays, will tend to do this, especially if they don't see the hen initially. So I'm aiming back to the original spot right now because that's where I heard that gobbler, where I was before. And right now I'm waiting. I heard him gobble just a moment before, and I'm looking intently at that spot. But you always got to be looking from side to side because you never know where he's going to appear without moving your head. And look, lo and behold, there's that gobbler. He circled me. He didn't want to come in right away, as they typically don't. He circles, but when he's like that, you cannot move your gun barrel. I guarantee if you move your gun barrel, if he don't immediately duck and pitch off the mountain, he will just flush into the air. So what you have to do is wait until that head goes behind a tree. And once you do that, then you move deliberately and don't make noise while you're doing it. And right here, you wait for him to come back out again. And he may come out of different sides to the tree, not the same one, but there he is. And again, like I said, if I'm going to shoot a turkey nowadays, I don't want to be eating pellets. I love to eat wild turkey meat. So I'm going to pull him out of strut. And he's a big one. Soon as he comes up, he's looking and he's suspicious. Boom! Okay, folks, I just shot at that gobbler. I didn't see his head go up, so as far as I'm concerned, he's probably flopping just over that rise. I'm going to put my safety on the gun real quick, and we're going to head towards that prize. And right there, he's sitting on that mound. That's right there. Oftentimes when you get next to a gobbler like this, he will be flopping. It's just like the chicken with the head cut off. Let him run out of steam. Unless you've got a really steep hill over a river, many hunters will go up and stop the bird from moving, usually by stepping on his head. You don't want to reach for them legs, because if you do, you could get cut by the spurs or you could get bruised by those wings. It's a very powerful bird. At that point, you're getting down with your gun. At this point, before you take this bird anyway, you need to tag him. We have an app that goes on our phone, a Go Outdoors app, that you can tag your bird. You don't even need to paper tag anymore. Or on your license, and it's referred to the Big Game Harvest Report Card, you can do it on paper. You got to notch the month and the day for the turkey tag. But do keep your tagging consistent. So if you're going to choose the Go Outdoors app, always use that. If you're going to choose a paper tag, always use that. And then after you tag him, you've got till noon the next day to call that bird in. Letting the agency know about a harvested bird, and they'll ask you several questions, is very important to manage this fine species.
The next topic we're going to cover is decoys, the good and the bad of them. Up here in my hand, I've got a $10, $15 decoy you can pick up in any Walmart. And down there on the ground, we got decoys at a couple $100. Now granted, there are positives and negatives of using decoys. One of the negatives is you got to carry that thing around. It takes time setting them up, and then sometimes the birds even run from those decoys, especially if they've seen them used before. The pros of using decoys, at least for me, is they work really good out in the open. Turkeys are visual birds, so they're coming looking, expecting to see another bird. They're hearing a bird calling, they come expecting to see a bird there. So by having decoys out, it provides them that opportunity to see that bird or see the bird they hear calling and come on a little closer. Now in the hunt scenario we saw earlier, Deet wasn't using decoys, and he used his setup to be able to shoot the bird right as it came over the lip. For me, I like to use decoys when I can't use that terrain advantage. When I'm in a wide open field, when I'm along a roadbed like this, it gives the bird something to focus on other than me. the birds are looking here and not here, which is positive. However, like I stated earlier, some birds are wary of decoys. Turkeys move, and unless you got a breezy day, your decoys aren't going to be moving. So it's up to you whether you want to use decoys. A couple other things to consider when you're using decoys is how many decoys you're going to put out. What scene are you trying to portray? I oftentimes put a Jake decoy and a hen decoy out. That hen can be standing like she is here. She can be laying on the ground. Her head position can be changed. It all depends on the decoys you have. Jake decoys, like the one here, often show a subordinate bird, so not a dominant bird. A big fad right now, or a big trend, is using full fan decoys or strutter decoys. They demonstrate a dominant gobbler, and that may encourage your bird that you're working to come closer, or it may encourage him to run the other way. Something else to consider when setting up decoys is the distance you set the decoys up from you and the placement. I often like to place them off my left shoulder because I'm right-handed, and it's comfortable for me to be in a shooting position toward the decoys, but also allow for me to move the gun if the birds come from another direction. I like to set the decoys up 20-25 yards away because I know my effective range is roughly 40 yards. So that still gives me about 15 yards to play with if those birds come in and decide to hang up and don't commit all the way to coming into the decoys. Deet, you got any other tips?
I think I might have mentioned it earlier, folks. I rarely use decoys, and that's because most of the time when I'm ready to set up on a bird, because of my style of hunting, which is move, stop and call, move, stop and call, move, stop and call, I'll strike a bird close by, especially when you have a windy condition, so I don't have time to set up decoys. And like in the scene we showed, you are going to encounter two things during turkey season. Well, among others, when I start out early in the year, I'll typically have snow falling. Usually that shuts birds down. They get quiet then, but a bird will still gobble in the snow. Wind and rain are two things that hunters don't like. We have wind today. In those conditions, you want to look for leeward side of ridges, bottoms where it's calmer, because the turkeys aren't going anywhere. They're going to stay in the woods. And I do tend to, if you can't hear because of the wind, call a little bit louder, more aggressively, and sit a little bit longer. You're not always going to have bluebird days in the woods. I don't know about you guys, but turkeys mesmerize me. Folks, one of the things we're going to talk about now is probably one of the most important, and that is safety, and several different aspects of turkey hunting safety. You know, in the 1990s, the #1 cause of hunting incidents, not accidents, incidents in my home state was mistaken for game. There's absolutely no excuse for that. I'm a funny looking guy, but I don't look like a turkey. So proper identification, and in North Carolina, that is a male or bearded bird. And if you're even hunting other states, moving around, the regulations can be a little bit different. But properly identify the target. Colors not to wear. You can tell right now I'm in all camo, my favorite color. But here's an example of the typical handkerchiefs, or however you say it, that you can buy. And if you keep these colors in mind, anywhere on this wild turkey are these colors. The white on the top, the red on the caruncles, the blue, that's the pigment in between around his eyes, and the black of the body. These should not be any part of your garments. When carrying this bird out, although not required by law, you should have some type of either a vest or, like in my case, this carrying bag. And for me, typically, I'm not going from the farmhouse to the bale about 100 yards away. I may have to carry this bird a mile or a mile and a half, and this is basically a backpack. So you don't have to have something like this, but it makes carrying them easier and safer. But I'll always have an orange hat. And usually, it's a brand new orange hat, but I will carry this one because I've had it forever, and every time I've harvested a gobbler or even moved on a gobbler when I wasn't set up, I would have this orange hat on. That way it keeps you safe when you're moving, but especially when you're carrying a bird. And that way you stay safe, and it'll keep our turkey hunting from having mistaken for game incidents. And always, again, properly identify your target as a legal turkey.
Hey, another hunter here.
Tip number one, folks, when you're walking through the woods, you could encounter another hunter already set up in a turkey hunting situation. The best way to handle that is just say, hunter over here, not wave your hand, not make a turkey call, just make it obvious that you're there. Because when you're in camo, it's very easy to miss that. Also, if you end up in a situation, you're coming in from a hunter at a distance that is working a bird, you can hear that gobble. What you don't want to do is try to go out around and set up in another location to work that bird. That hunter is working that bird first. Have a plan B or a plan C and come back later and set up on a different bird. That hunter's in charge of that one. It's the same thing also if you're going down the road and one of the parking lots already has a vehicle in it. If it's a small tract of land, you have to keep in mind it's not like deer hunting where everybody stays in a stationary position and another hunter can be a distant out of sight, a distance away, and that's okay. In a turkey hunting situation, when that bird gobbles, it is a goal for the hunter, as you saw earlier, to move as close as possible to that bird and set up. And what you don't want to have is multiple people trying to set up on the same bird. So always be the person that's courtesy to other hunters. And again, besides colors, keep it safe, keep it ethical, and have a great spring season.
Oh, D, did you hear that one?
I did hear that, John Henry. John Henry, that's my bird.
Whoa, buddy. I scouted. I found him. I just heard him.
Come on, I brought you here.
I beat you to the parking lot.
All right, wait a minute. We'll flip a stick.
Stick down, I calling it.
All right, stick down.
Yes! See you later, buddy.
You always do
Going to get it.
Okay, well, we hope you enjoyed that one, and we'll need a third sequel maybe next year. Since decoys, we always have so many questions about decoys. I thought I'd run through some reminders sort of what we were talking about. And I do see our time flying. We have lots to show you, but we'll keep it moving, and I hope you enjoy it since is our last night. Always placed off your non-shooting shoulder, as John Henry alluded to. So you can see that person there. He's a right-handed shooter. He's got his forearm, his hand on the forearm, and the decoys are off to that side. That way, when he moves a shotgun barrel, he or she, they have a full range of motion. Keep that in mind. Place at least equal to or less than half the maximum effective range of your pattern shotgun. Hint, hint, make sure you pattern that gun. That will let you know how far you can shoot that bird. And that way, then, if it's half the distance, even if that bird hangs up out, say if your gun will shoot 40 yards with a good pattern, if they're half the distance, he's 40 yards out, you can still kill him. If you put those decoys out at 40 yards and he hangs up, he's out of range. You don't get him. So tip. Best for open areas in woods and fields, typically not in thickets. Wherever that turkey is coming from a distance, if he doesn't see the hen, he may stop and he may go the other way. So that's why they're good there. As the foliage increases, especially in the spring, or in thick areas if you're hunting, and you're typically going to encounter that probably in the coast, you don't need decoys out, because the reality is, since the foliage is there, that turkey, as he's coming, he'll get close to be able to see you. And by that time, he's probably already in the maximum effective range of your gun. Not always effective. I say, as an example, and John Henry would agree, 50-50. They work sometimes, they don't work sometimes. As he also alluded to, not legal in all states. Know when you're traveling, whether they're legal or not. Never carry them exposed, extremely dangerous. That's how, if you remember the picture from the first night, that's how somebody ended up getting shot. There's no excuse for it, but it can happen. Don't call while moving, because again, I've said in the past, we are bipedal, so are turkeys, 2 legs. We can sound like a turkey and turkey can sound like us. Something I didn't mention in the video, when hunting ridges, mountains, typically what I do, and that's regardless of decoys, always attempt to set up at the same level on that topography or above the gobbler before calling. It's called the predator escape factor, or at least that's what I call it. And the reality is when you're calling a bird uphill, if you're above him, if he senses danger, it's easier for that gobbler to just pitch off that ridge. He jumps in the air and he's already can start coasting and he's gone. If he's coming downhill to you, it's a lot harder for him to pitch up because he's got to spring into the air. He's already got mountain that he's got to run into. Can you call a gobbler downhill? Yes, but it's far less likely than calling them uphill. So try to get, again, same level or above. This is where we start what we call our typical hunt start to finish, including setting up on and harvesting a gobbler. It's not a video, it's a slideshow, but I'm sure you will enjoy it. John Henry, take it away.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Glad everybody could join us again for this third and final night. If you didn't join us last night, my name's John Henry Harrelson. I was the guy in the video opposite Deep, the younger, more handsome fella. So Deep asked me a long time ago to talk about what my favorite hunt is. Let's see if we can get the slides to progress. There we go. And I'm gonna be honest, my favorite hunt or dream hunt is kind of like what you see on TV. It's what you watch on YouTube. You already know where one is. You go, you sit there. Man, they're gobbling their heads off. I mean, just won't be quiet. A whole bunch of them are around. They come in, they do all the things turkeys are supposed to do, and then you shoot one and you get to go home early. Like to me, that's like the dream hunt. I'm gonna tell you that's probably happened in my life, maybe like 3 times. So that's not a typical hunt. That's not typically how it works out. But what I'm going to go over here next is kind of a look. Well, honestly, it's of a hunt that took place last season, or actually 2 seasons ago. And I'm going to kind of walk you through a real hunt, looking at aerial photographs and what I did and kind of how it played out. So this is a place I got permission to hunt on. And from previous scouting and previous history, I know those red stars right there where birds like to roost at. Those are potential places for me to hear a bird first thing in the morning. And a good place for me to start at. Those yellow stars I just added, those are typically places I go to try to hear birds right at first light. So I go here at this time of day, like you see in the photo there, and I'm owl hooting and I'm listening. I'm already listening for birds that are, on this place, there's lots of owls already. So most of the time they're hooting on their own and turkeys will be gobbling in response to them potentially. This particular morning, I went to that yellow star there, and those red stars were where I heard turkeys at. And I was thinking I was sitting pretty good spot. There's 3 birds I can at least hear, and 2 of them, now granted, all of them are off the property, but that doesn't mean they don't come on the place I hunt. So I made a move. I kind of shifted over to that corner right here, this fire line right here, and those birds flew down and went out in that field. And now, granted, I can't hunt that field, but I can see in that field and could see what those birds were doing. And after sitting there for 10 or 15 minutes calling, I had those bad boys walk up. Now, if you can look close enough, you'll see that those are not longbeards. Those are jakes. You can see my decoy right there in the picture on that fire line. I chose not to shoot a jake. I've killed plenty of jakes, nothing wrong with shooting a jake. I just am at this point, my hunting career, I like to shoot longbeards. And honestly, I like making turkeys just as much as I like hunting turkeys. And we do a lot of making turkeys out there on this place. We do a lot of burning, and even in our hardwoods and down close to the swamps, we do some burning up top in our CRP fields. Trying to create early successional habitat that these birds will want to use, want to nest in, want to be around, disking, planting food plots. So we're heavily managing this place literally for turkeys with the thought about turkeys. So, I just had that interaction with those jakes there. That other gobbler had kind of shifted around that corner. I'd seen him take his hens and go around there and I said, well, that's done. So I'm going to ease my way, kind of walking, slow calling, listening through the track. And I end up over here to this second yellow star, which put me, and this is about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning at this point, and I hadn't heard any birds gobble in a while. Nothing was responding to my calls. And then all of a sudden, bam, I look out in this little food plot here, this strip, and there's two longbeards strutting just as much as they could strut, hadn't gobbled, and I hadn't heard them all morning. Couldn't believe there was birds there. And I hunkered down beside a tree, made 2 or 3 little soft calls, and being as I could see them, I could tell what they were doing. And man, one of them really liked that soft calling, and he broke off. And well, it didn't take long for him to walk 50 yards up there to get to me. If the slide to progress, we can see what's next. Sorry, guys, we're having some technical difficulty on my end.
Ooh.
Whoa. Looks like it just caught up for everybody right there. We went way ahead, huh? So let me scoot back. Sorry, everybody. That's the joys of having technology. So yeah, there we go. He ended up, you can kind of see behind me, right down there where my mouse is where they were strutting at. And he come right up that road right to me. And man, every one of them is memorable. You never forget them, and you got to respect and appreciate each one. Which I will tell you that, while you're hunting, sometimes you'll kill birds that look like this, that are soaking wet, that are yellow, they look horrible. I like to spend 15 or 20 minutes, sometimes an hour, letting them dry out. And that's about 30, 45 minutes of between those two pictures right there. And man, that's a memory that's frame worthy on that picture. I'd also encourage you to spend time to, honor each bird, more than just the feathers. I mean, more than just the breasts and the legs. There's feathers and spurs and beards with each one. I can't do this with every one of them, but that's something that hangs on my wall. I made that cedar little square right there, came off that same piece of property. And another little helpful tip before I finish up is use your trail cameras. This is actually from the same place. This is maybe even the bird I killed. And you can even see in the background in one of those photos, we had a ground blind set up with the thought of them being there for my kids to hunt. It didn't work out this particular instance, but I would encourage you to use trail cameras, use whatever tools you have. And then finally, we're going to end on a recipe. Dee asked me to share a recipe. Those are old turkey thighs. A lot of people throw them away. They don't take time to use them, but you can transition from that to something like this, which are some turkey leg tacos. And if you're into that, that's the recipe right there. Pretty much make some crock pot turkey legs and man, oh man, put them in the skillet afterwards, and they turn into a delicious meal. So thanks everybody for joining me. Thanks for listening. And Deep, so it looks like you're up, buddy.
Awesome. I'm up. Yes. And as John Henry noted that, he said it's kind of like TV, he likes to get in there, get her done. And my style tends to be like American Ninja Warrior. And you're probably going to see something like that. And as John Henry said, he's younger and better looking. I'm only 35. That's been all these hard years of turkey hunting really done it for me. I mentioned this guy a lot of times when I'm talking that in the in-person workshops. Ray I, he's legendary turkey hunter from Missouri, and some really good books. And basically that on the right is a VHS tape, and they are very limited to try to find them. He never put it on DVD, but as I've often said, it's one of the greatest how-to videos, volume 1 and 2, that was ever produced. It would put a millennial, Gen Z, or Gen X to sleep. There was only probably 1 or 2 kills in the 2 hours that it is, but it was all about learning. So it was really awesome. Anyway, I'm going to get into, he talked about in them tapes in the advanced version, the 4 breeding periods in hunting. So I'm going to try to make a slight rendition of that. As you may or may not know, it is the increasing daylight that brings turkeys into the breeding period. And it's all about the hormones, and I won't get into all that stuff, but as you know, we refer to it as the photo period. That determines the onset of breeding. But oftentimes it can be fine-tuned by environmental conditions, meaning changes in weather. It's always going to be the amount of daylight, the increasing daylight that brings turkeys in, but the weather can have a slight impact. So there was a period one that he mentioned, and I thought it was really awesome. And this is a time when you can have, and depending on when the season starts in our state, there can be these conditions. So in this period one, you typically have a late spring. And I've already seen in the springtime where I'll see gobblers and hens together. Then all of a sudden you'll get this massive cold front come in. And in the big mountain areas, which I typically hunt, I'll be seeing gobblers hanging up by themselves, being by themselves. Well, as we mentioned in the video the other night, Jake yelping, coarse clucks, fighting purr, spit and drum, anything that mimics another gobbler can create a situation where they're looking for a buddy, if they're a subordinate, or cause a fight. And Ray, I did say in his videos that there were times in the spring when he was having problems a hard time using hen calls, and he was very successful with using Jake yelping. And obviously gobbling, as we talked about in the video, the other night, but used with extreme caution or not at all on public land. Period two tends to be like a pre-breeding. Toms, as you can see there, are searching for hens. Hens may be unreceptive. This is typically right around that first gobbling peak. Then all calls can be effective, but you typically will have that dominant gobbler and a dominant hen. They're always going to be together, and it's hard to break them up. But during this time, many younger birds are killed, and it's typically early in the season. A period three, peak breeding, hens are receptive. The mating is in full swing. Hunters will often consider this the gobbling lull. They'll be like, well, other gobblers are killed off, or they're just not gobbling this year. No, they're probably in the peak breeding mode. And again, can have different impacts at different latitudes in different states and different weather conditions. Subordinates or satellites are vulnerable to calling. The only challenge with them sometimes is if there is a dominant gobbler in the area, he can kind of shut them down. They're not allowed to gobble or they'll get whacked. But that's where you have the skulkers coming in, so it pays more to be patient. Blind calling techniques, scratching in the leaves, natural sounds, again, for those skulkers, and be patient and ready. And it is a time, though, to challenge the boss hen. And she will tend to want to keep her man to herself. And if she hears another hen, she's either going to do typically one of two things. She's going to take her man away, or she's going to come and run you off. And the advantage to the hunter is if she comes and tries to run you off, she often has him in tow. And the first bird I killed, the first time I ever hunted in Virginia, I challenged a hen and I got that first gobbler. But make sure he's away from those other hens and other turkeys. Period four, that's typically peak and post nesting. Majority of hens are out of harm's way. They're on the nest, and that's typically considered the second gobbling peak. States do try to establish seasons around this period because, as I say there, hens are out of harm's way. It's the best for that population. But gobblers are lonely for the first time since the breeding onset, and they do not like being alone. And so typically any calling is kind of the last opportunity for him to mate till next spring. And so he tends to be eager. It's also considered the best time to harvest an adult gobbler. And the only caveat there is the hunting pressure. It becomes a double-edged sword. Yes, he's ready to mate. He wants to mate. He has the lack of hens, but he may have also been challenged by some hunters, and he may be reluctant or silent. It's when patience comes in. So again, those things are typically depending on the state you hunt in. I'm a state jumper, so that's where it comes from. And weather conditions, it can change a little bit. The seasonality can be different. 3 primary turkey hunting methods. I am the run and gun, cut and run person. Move, stop, and call. I always will be. Only the good Lord's going to slow me down. But that's my preferred. I said it the other night, a very patient deer hunter, very impatient turkey hunter. And I just love that method. Nowadays, I would say that slow down and sit down is one of the best. Gobblers are smarter. Gobblers have dealt with more predators. They're more used to the habitat. And so they may oftentimes come in silent or circle you. And so staying longer, because there's, even when I was running and gunning, I can remember moving along, calling, moving, calling, stopping, calling each time. And I'd get to a crest of a ridge and I'd hear, so that bird was coming in silent, but I lost him. Well, I thought, hey, I'll hit another one down the road. But again, number 2 can work. And obviously the patient wait, typically done in a blind, hunt them like you're hunting deer. And if you know where they're going to be or where they're going, that's an ideal way to hunt. Roosted ain't roasted. It was in many of the old VHS tapes. I always like to hear that. Just because you have a bird roosted in the morning and you know where he is, doesn't mean you are going to get him. I like to let nature happen first. Maybe I'll hit the locators and then turkey calls. That's my routine. I typically do not make any calls to try to elicit until the light gets coming in more. And you'll hear me say it again. If you know where he wants to go, that's where you want to be. If you do that, if you can, as we say, pattern a bird, if you don't have that thing called WORK that interferes with things or other competing interests, you can do that and you can get where he wants to be. Avoid barriers when setting up. Make sure that that path to you is as clear as possible. Even though he can fly across anything and jump over anything, he will typically hang up. They've already done it on a stick, a little creek bed, a log, anything. Make the path clear. They're just like humans, paths of least resistance. He flies down, now what? Well, you got to determine, do you know where he's going? Do you know where he struts? Trying to get him to respond to a call. Natural sounds. He may just decide to go the other way, and that sometimes happens. He may be totally disinterested in you. Cut and run, but don't call while moving. Stop before you call. Again, that goes back to that safety thing. You are bipedal, so is he. Moving and calling at the same time is dangerous. It shouldn't be, but it can be. Hung up, know when to move and where. Sometimes I've been in a situation where that bird was hung up and he wasn't comfortable coming to me from that direction. But sometimes moving, backing up, making big wide circles around him. And I've already set up on a bird 5 times. You made by almost going entirely around him, but I'm talking like an 1/8 quarter of a mile silently around him. And there may be a comfortable spot that he has either came in or he's traveled, but he don't like your spot. Non-calling techniques, always scratching in the leaves. We mentioned that already, especially when birds are kind of spooked up, maybe been shot at or dealt with hunter pressures or challenges with decoys. As I like to say, ladies in the AM, dead in late AM or afternoon. Many a times I've run into a adult gobbler with hens, couldn't challenge the hen, left them go, ran my circuit in the big woods, come back about close to lunchtime because you typically have to quit at noon in the north, and then it opens up all day later on in the season. Get back to the truck, I'm like starving Marvin, but I thought, no, wait a minute. That bird a quarter mile down the road, he had hens this morning, maybe he won't. Scooted down there, went up the logging road, made a couple of quick calls. He gobbled, laid down on the ground, aiming the gun. He was in 10 minutes and I killed him. It can happen. Gobbling lull, take a snack break and reassess. And that's typically after that first daylight break. You saw that in our biology the first night. There's that gobbling in the morning and then it goes down. Eat a snack, reassess your next move. Many hunters go home after that initial gobbling. Don't go home and cut the grass. Don't go to the Walmart. Don't do all those other things that humans do. Stay in the woods because late morning can be great, as can be afternoon. Silent gobblers, the worst kind. If you got the patience, that's what you want to do. You have nothing, go where you know where birds may or were. And if you've done your scouting, if you've done your homework after the initial, use your fingers to do the walking first in the Regs Digest, then you know where they are and you can go check the areas out. Gobbler yelps, pecking order challenge, and slow down the rhythm. That's the rhythm. That's what I mentioned. Instead of a fast yelp, which it typically is, slow it down. And that is what a gobbler does. And if you're out in the woods in the fall hunting deer, or even just for walks in the fall, you will hear those gobbler yelps and they can challenge dominance or bring one in for a buddy. That is the Red Roof Chevy Inn. That's where I typically stay. You can see it from a distance. That is down in Green River Game Lands. Was down there a number of years ago. I love that beautiful translucent green that's coming in. Always awesome. Getting up a little closer to it, you can see big tarp, big cooler, lots of ice in there, lots of food, and I'm ready for whatever. Comfortable accommodations. In fact, when I load it up, it looks like no human can sleep in there. But then by the time I move that stuff out of the way, plenty of room, and it's quite cozy, and there's no traffic noise, no humans, no neighbors, no nothing. That's typically my breakfast. You can see, and I'm actually taking a lot of time there. I think it's usually in about a minute. Typically I have a bottle of coffee, a banana, and that was when I was in the private sector, eating the brand name Slim Fast. Now as a state worker, I use the Equate. Yeah, JK, some humor. And of course, higher end protein bars I'm using now too. So my hunt, that's on a ridge in Virginia. It was about 20 degrees. I had very light clothes on, as I do for turkey hunting. I was semi-hypothermic, but nothing really dangerous. I was enjoying the morning, and that beautiful full moon out there, it's blocked by a limb, was just mesmerizing. Well, the light starts to come in, and that's when I start listening. And it's really neat when you go from pitch dark and nothing except maybe like some creatures walking through the woods, and all of a sudden the first songbird, and then the next songbird, and some rustling in the leaves. Then by this time, I'm expecting a gobble. And if I don't hear one, okay, I'm still patient. Maybe he's a late riser, whatever. And then when we get to the sunrise, that's when I start doing my job. And as you can see, I typically like the undulating topography. So I'll move towards these hollows and ridges, and I won't call at the edge looking down in, because there could be a bird roosted. So I'm back a distance, I will hit a call. And then if I do get a response, I will try to get that within close to my maximum effective range, so I'm not too close to that edge, and I'll start calling from that point. As I said the other night, know where you are always, and when you're setting up on a bird, never, ever set on a boundary of private property. Why, you ask? Because if you're setting up on that boundary and that bird's coming in from the private, you're likely going to attempt to kill that bird on the private, and that's illegal. If I'm even following a border, which I do, because then you're essentially kind of hunting private and public land, I will always skirt that border at least 25 yards inside the public land. That way, if you need to set up on a bird, you can back up even more to your maximum effective range. And then when it crosses the private border, you can kill it. We all have our own barometer, but you're never going to feel good about an illegal gobbler, no matter who you are. And there's an example of a place where I heard a bird. And as you can see, the game lands are those two dots, but on the same tree is a posted sign. And I knew from looking at my phone app that that was private. And I was not going to, well, I tried to call him off of there, but it didn't work. He liked the open area, and that was it. And then I move on. Close to a ridge like this, again, I said this the other night. So with that being so open as it is, I will not call from that lip. If you do have decoys set up and you had enough time to set up decoys because he wasn't coming fast and you didn't strike him close, you could do it. But in this case, it was one where I had to back up. And then once he hit the crest, just like in the video, I was able to kill him. Being too close to that ridge has been a nightmare many times. I've already sat like next to that tree that has the burn mark on it. I had a gobbler way off to the left, and he was down in, and I thought, he's going to crest. He's going to crest out in front of me. I'm going to kill him. Well, what does a gobbler do? He sneaks along that bottom, right along here, and he come up right about here and walked right in my face. And when he come by me, he was no more than like 2 yards away, and that big old gobbler eye was staring right at me, and he pitched off that limb. He flew over on this mountain over here. So don't put yourself in that situation. Get back and have that bird crest that you can see him. That log right there represents a problem. Great. If that bird comes up on the other side of that log, like over here, you're good. But he could easily hang up. And if his head doesn't pitch over the top, you're done. You don't get a shot. This is a perfect example of me using a log as to hide my cover. I was sitting against a tree here, so the log wasn't far away. And you maybe can't see it, but that right there is a turkey gobbler. I was working him for an hour and 45 minutes, and it was about 50 yards out. And even though I had my 10 gauge and it was copper plated shells, it probably could have touched them, but it was only patterned for 40 yards and I didn't feel comfortable about it. Well, the reality is what happened to that bird. I was being patient, but I ran out of time. So it went from about 10 after 11 and I sat there on the closing time of noon. And all I did was put my safety on safe, crawled over the log because I had a tail over here that like hunched over because of the warm weather. And as I crawled, he just like slowly walked away. He didn't spook. I went out of the woods. I had a creek to cross, come back the next day. I heard him gobble, but I never got a chance at him. I actually wrote a story about that bird. And sometimes you enjoy the ones even that get away. Here's a situation. See any barriers? That's a thicket down there. Real open woods. And if a bird gobbles down below there, he may for sure hang up behind that thicket. And if you're sitting here, that's a good distance away from that thicket. That's it. You're not going to get a shot. So if you hear the bird, you want to maybe move out a little further or try to get close to that thicket if it's not too big. Decoy alley, I call it. Perfect place to put up a decoy. Because if you're sitting here by a tree and that gobbler's way down there and he doesn't see, well, if he doesn't see a decoy, he's not coming. And sometimes even if he does, he still won't come. It's a chess game. And as we point out, there are no absolutes. This was a Tennessee bird. I was walking back towards the vehicle. It was another noon closing time, but it wasn't noon yet. There was thickets on both sides, Laurel. It's a place where I would not hunt turkeys. But there was a gobbler strutting that one right there when I was walking up. And I seen this fan as I'm walking. And I'm like, is that a decoy? Is there a hunter hunting there? Then that decoy moved a little bit. I hit the ground. I dove to the ground. Had the gun up. Obviously, the turkey heard me hit the ground, pulled his head out. He was within range. I knew it right away. Boom, he went down and his hen flew off. So there's a situation where they will move through those thickets, but they'll use these trails as highways. Extremely open woods are a nightmare, especially when it's a knob. I encountered the ghost here, the ghost of the Virginia Highlands. And the ghost echoed in every hollow, and I could never pinpoint his direction, nor did he ever come in. I think he was a gobbler seeking vengeance of hunting time years ago, and it was real spooky that morning. But I mean, look at that sunrise. It'll make you cry. Here's a situation where I was on the top of this ridge. It was a beautiful saddle where I also hunt in Virginia, and it's starting to get really thick though. But point is, I was up here. Plenty of, I was probably about 25 yards away from my decoys. And this gobbler was gobbling hot. Well, he come up over this way with like 3 hands. Soon as he saw that fan, he jumped right over this log, was ready to beat it up. And just as he got close to that fan, boom, and I had him. So he was heck bent on beating up that Jake. And it is a Jake tail. You can see that with the longer center tail feather. So I had a Jake, a hen, and that tail, and it worked out nicely. Moment of truth tips, folks. Take his temperature first, hot or not. And you saw that in the vid. Keep that in mind because that depends on how you're going to call it. If he responds, stop calling, let him find you. Put the calls down. The worst thing we can do is keep calling. Assume the position and get comfortable. Use objects to determine maximum effective range. Soon as I sit down, I'm like, that tree's 15 yards. That rock is 20 yards. That log is 30 yards. You immediately do that when you set up for a bird, and don't shoot out of that effective range. Be patient, be ready. Don't move. Use your eyes to move, especially when you got one coming in. If you need to move, wait till his eyes are obstructed. You already saw that. When to shoot? When you get a chance. When that head's fully exposed, and as we said the other night, where pretty meets ugly, where the feathers meet the caruncles, the red caruncles, that is the aiming point. And if he's moving, stop him, just like we said in the video. Or just, you can do whatever. Hi, George. You know, I mean, granted, you probably don't want to say that, but just a simple, because that's an alarm call and his head will stop. But if you wait, you're not going to get the shot. And make sure it's a clear shot. Head goes up, shoot it again. Avoid shooting multiple birds. You're going to get nervous. Don't wait till the heads come together. Wait till they separate and don't shoot until that happens. Do not run to a down gobbler. I did that one time out in Virginia. No, in North Carolina on a steep ridge. I was booking down there. I'll bet you I got up to about 25 mile an hour. Well, when I hit a flat rock, I went down. I thought I broke my arm. I killed both the gobbler and sprained my arm. Don't run. That's dangerous. And make sure that gun's on safe or unloaded when you walk toward the gobbler. Step on his head and neck, as we said, it's still flopping. Tag your gobbler immediately and report ASAP. So important. Savor the woodland gift you were granted. Absolutely. One of the best ways to do that is think that from the egg to adult, something has been trying to kill and eat it. The fact that it grew to adulthood in of itself is a gift, and it deserves your respect. Bottom line. Rain, wind, snow doesn't mean you can't go. There's the red roof in all conditions. And believe me, that was in the teens. You want to wake up in the back of a box in the teens. That's American Ninja Warrior right there. Sitting, looking out during a rainstorm in Tennessee. That's Virginia there. It was a bluebird day. I wanted to show that picture. I mean, the weather couldn't have been better. And obviously rain. I had multiple rain days in Tennessee, and one of the best places to hunt is on some of them logging roads, because I'd find tracks in there, you know, when you'd get heavy rain. So it may delay fly down. They'll typically stay on the roost in the morning longer with rain, especially if it's foggy. Seek out woodland roads, openings, clearings, and fields. I mean, that's where they will go. Wind, as we said in the video, leeward ridges, hollows, depressions, creek bottoms, thicket edges, anywhere where you can get out of that, that's where the turkeys will be, because they can hear better. If it's windy and the trees are like rattling at or smacking into one another, they don't want to be there either. Snow, sleet, openings, absolute best, just like rain. Sit out a blizzard, hunt a squall. That's what I typically do. Bottom line, hunt when you can, because you only get so many days to hunt turkeys in life. All kinds of weather, all kinds of opportunity, folks. Bottom line. This is about 5 years ago when I still looked like Tom Selleck. I'm noticing some of the changes right now. But the point is, choose a nice backdrop for your turkey and don't make it all gory. That was like a friend's old barn, made a perfect backdrop, and yeah, picture perfect moment. Some of my favorite food is wild turkey nuggets. So simple. Some of you probably like those very cheap and, well, not cheap anymore, McDonald's chicken nuggets. You try these things, you'll throw those in the trash. And it's so simple, you know, and I'll send the recipe. Well, you'll get it in the recording, you know, and you can stop it, but they are delish. Healthy canola oil, some flour, Old Bay seasoning. Can't beat it. I will typically, the leg should be made different than the breast. Now, you can deep fry the legs too if you want to. I've never done that, but I'm going to test it out. But I like making soup. And it can be as simple as, you know, egg noodles that I'm using there, 2 pounds of mixed veggies. The better than bulling a little bit of that. The legs themselves make an excellent, excellent broth. And that's just a recipe there. There's a ton of recipes, folks. These are some advanced tactics that we trimmed down this year because of the video. And although we are running a little bit long, we should still be good. There's only a few of them, but we call this tag teaming beyond textbook. You know, the ideal thing, like John Henry said, yep, turkey comes in, you kill them. The first bird I ever killed was exactly that, but it will not happen all the time. So this is what we're going to cover. So there used to be like 8 or 10 in here, 12 maybe, but we nailed it down a few. So John Henry, you want to carry that one away quickly, concise, and to the point. And how this goes, it's kind of a game. It's like if John Henry says any certain things, and I can steal, meaning I can only steal if I have something to add. If I have nothing to add, I can't repeat what he said. So if John Henry covers it, yep, that's what I did. Then I'll just say, okay, I'm going up to mine. And that's how we'll play. So John Henry, go ahead.
All right, Deep, thanks. So for the first issue of a henned up gobblers, this situation occurs oftentimes in early season or in places where you have lots of hens and just a few gobblers. The gobbler doesn't want to leave a surefire thing to come over and investigate the potential of you. So oftentimes there's a couple of different tactics. Oftentimes I either try to get one of those hens mad, call to the hen and get the hens to come to me. I play the patience game and I wait, especially if I can see them, wait for those turkeys to figure out which way they're moving and then move in front of them and just wait for them to come by me. Or I go find another gobbler that wants to work. Because oftentimes a henned up gobbler, oh, he'll gobble at you, but that doesn't mean he's coming to you. Dee, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just say that that gobbler that you referred to, we call it the courtesy gobbler in the VHS videos. The hunters of that time would call it a courtesy. He's just letting you know. And if you don't move, that may be the situation. And again, just like I noted, come back later. Come back later because you may get a chance then. Hung up gobblers that we already talked about. One, if you know your scouting area, you're going to know where the barriers are. If you're going in blind, you're at the mercy of the barriers. Just because he's hung up doesn't mean you can't move around on him. Just like I said, there's somewhere that he's comfortable coming in. If you know where he's entering that area, again, by patterning, you don't even need to work on hanging him up. You can just be where he is going. And what else I gotta say about hung up gobblers? Sometimes I will use, especially if he's hung up with a hen call, again, go back to that gobble call that we showed the other night that can challenge his dominance. Sometimes that can be the thing that trips his trigger, or that coarse yelp, or sounding like hens and then gobbling. And I've done that many times where he's like, okay, I'm hung up, but he's already got another lady. I'm going to go after him. So trying a multitude of things. And that's probably the extent what I do. You have anything to add to that, John Henry?
No, hung up gobblers are the worst, especially when they come almost all the way to you before they stop.
Yep.
So, continuing on with runway gobblers. So, runway gobblers is a term we use for a gobbler that's stuck in his strut zone. Essentially, he's got an area that he's displaying in, and he's walking from one end of it to the next, and he is putting on a show. It's his stage. How I handle that one? Well, once you're sitting there and you call to him and he comes close and then he goes away and he comes back close, well, next time he goes away, I just start moving closer and don't call and wait for him to come and be there when he makes that return call and do the same thing. If he's coming close and going away, you can also try moving away. If there's there's not an option, you can also get down and if you got enough room, circle around and get on him, calling him to the other side. He may be more willing to come that way. There's lots of different options, especially if you got room on that bird.
Yep, and the only thing I'll add, which kind of leads into a similar situation, is what I refer to as the walkie-talkie. And that was a situation where he's walking, talking, he's probably going to a strut area. He won't answer your calls. I've already killed 2 birds in the state using a gobble shaker in a remote area where I was confident, semi-confident that there was nobody there. And they'll come in for one of 2 reasons. 1, they're looking for a buddy, or 2, they're looking to run you off. And that worked. And in both cases, he came in silent. So patience killed him. And 2 of them, 2 different days, took that bird out. Pressured gobbler, I'll give you an example from my home state, PA. I was moving along, wasn't having luck in the morning. I heard a bird, he won't come in. Moving along, I'm just walking. I wasn't even making call and I was headed to some spot. All of a sudden I hear a gobble, my walking in the leaves. Well, immediately I hit the deck, got set up and started calling. That was the last time I heard that bird. So my point, he may have been, and I'm only surmising, you never know. I mean, you can't figure these things out, but he may have been encountered a hunter when coming in and calling. He may have been shot at. And basically when I made that turkey call to him, I might've been saying, there's somebody over here with a large bore shotgun and he's ready to take your head off. And I never seen him again. What would I have done? And what would I do again? If I hear that walking, if I'm walking and I hear a gobble, I will sit down, but I will scratch in the leaves. I'll use those non-calling tactics, maybe even flap a wing, like we talked about the other night with using a wing for like fly down, but I wouldn't make a call. Is it guaranteed it'll work? Absolutely not. There's no such thing as a guaranteed. John Henry?
Pressured gobblers, I do some soft calling, a lot of purring. and a lot of scratching and leaves, just like Deet said. Those are really, really great strategies. Up next, those late afternoon strategies. So obviously turkeys fly up to trees to roost at night. We've discussed that. They go up probably right about sunset, right about 30 minutes before dark. That's usually about the time they're flying up. If I have hunted a spot that morning or know where birds like to roost at, well, those are areas I go and spend time in. He may not be coming in hot. If he gobbles once, you got a really good chance at shooting him. He's likely going to come and check you out. But those late day times is also a great time to scout for the next day to see where those birds roost at, especially if they don't come all the way and roost where you are. You have a great idea of how to get in there and hunt them in the morning based off of what they did the evening before.
I'll just add another caveat there. First and only time I ever killed a bird in the afternoon was on one of our game lands. And typically coming from the north and hunting northern states, yeah, could only hunt till noon. In fact, for some, it was all season like that. And the reality is I'm usually spent. If I'm in the mountains, I'm spent by noon. I've already put on 6, 8, 10 miles or more in the morning. So I'm ready to go back and have lunch, chill out, read a book, eat, and just enjoy nature. Well, on this game lands in particular, I'm going out. You typically won't hear a lot of gobbling. I didn't, but I happened to crest this knob. I made a call. It was 2:30 in the afternoon. I heard a bird. I'm like, oh my God, this is the first time ever. Sat up. 2 gobblers came right in, killed one of them. So will it work? Yep. And as it's been said, and John Henry may have mentioned it, but I didn't hear it. It's been said down here and in other states. If you can get one to gobble in the afternoon, you'll take them home in your pickup or your Prius, whatever you're driving. So poor weather strategies, as I already noted, and I'll allude to in an example. And again, it was in my home state, spent 47 years up there. So you might know that I'd be doing a lot of hunting up there. Working a ridge, all of a sudden it started drizzling and I knew the rain was coming. Most people would head home. Raining, I don't want to be out here. Turkeys are probably at the turkey lounge somewhere down near the creek or something. I knew exactly where I was going. I went off that mountain. I went down into a field edge. It was a cut corn field. And I got probably within 20 yards of that field as the rain was starting to come down, not like a drenching downpour, but a good drizzle. As soon as I made a call, I heard a gobble. I sat up near the edge in like a little thicket, a briar patch. I'll bet you it wasn't 10 minutes, a bird come in and I killed him. And so openings, fields, logging roads, any place where they can get out of that dripping and the noise, they will seek them out no matter where you are. John Henry?
I'll agree, Dee. They do not like to be in the woods when it's raining because the water obscures their vision and the sound of obscures their hearing. So they like to be out in the open where they can see. It's a great time to go scout.
Yep. Okay, this is a document that I carried. I still have the original pages. And it was from this Outdoor Life magazine, 93. That's when I really kicked in high gear state jumping. And it's basically like a double, thing. Of course, there's something for that. I'm losing my mind here. Troubleshooting turkeys. Yeah, troubleshooting, or are you having trouble shooting turkeys? So basically 2 meanings. And it has problem, likely diagnosis, solution, preferred calls. I will also be emailing this. It's like 4 pages long of techniques that you can use. And again, I carried this for so long, and it's just like a piece of the hunting equipment. And I used it. Now, did it work every time? Absolutely not. But it's possible. This is a really good book, probably the best if you're a book reader about the wild turkey biology and management. Very popular. It's probably still about, I don't know, 50 to 80 bucks. But any serious turkey hunter, I do recommend it. Although we gave you some recipes, I mean, you already know. 40 years ago, I didn't have the World Wide Web. You ask somebody about a recipe. Now I Googled recipes. I remember telling them during deer season, I think I got like 7.4 million recipes. So it's out there. I had hunters at in-person seminars one time. I'll never forget it. didn't screen comments, I guess. And Honor said, yeah, I eat the breast meat, but those turkey legs aren't fit for human consumption. And I just cringed. There's no such thing. That is fine cuisine. It's just all in how it's made. And granted, if you don't want to eat them, it's up to you, but they should be given away. They shouldn't be wasted. Or as the girl hunter here, Georgia Pellegrini, said, do not waste. You work too hard for this old gobbler, and he deserves that you respect every part of him. And that's one of the things I really respect about our modern day hunters that are already conservation minded, while my generation typically had to grow into that, total usage. And in fact, she shamed me because she does save the entire carcass after she does fillet the breast and take the legs off. And if you have a stock pot, that makes excellent stock with meat in it. And now it has me, I need to buy a stock pot. And it's just that I typically field dress and I'm out there and I don't have a place to store the carcass, but I put the meat in the cooler. I will be also sending how to process a wild turkey. It's a YouTube in New Hampshire. It's by the Wild Turkey Federation member. We've already created a series of deer processing videos, but we have yet to get a turkey. And as you know, it's a little bit harder to get one at a convenient time. So we hope to do that, but fine cuisine. And that Wild About Turkey cookbook, it's not in print anymore, but I just recently bought a copy. It's available. It's published by the National Wild Turkey Federation. Lots and lots of stuff in there. You might be able to find one. And if not, lots more. So time for Q&A, but first, most common turkey hunting violations, again, for which there is no excuse because people attending tonight may be here for the first time. So Eric, you want to take that away, please?
Sure. So just like last night, I don't want to beat these same points into the ground over and over again, but most commonly, we typically see people hunting turkeys with the use and aid of bait. We see people failing to tag and register their birds, and it's very common to see people trespassing. So follow the law, hunt legally, hunt ethically. I believe it was Aldo Leopold who said something very close to being ethical is doing the right thing even when nobody is watching. So have a good moral compass. Remember that when somebody thinks of a hunter, they think of you. Make sure that you are portraying what a hunter should be.
Very well said. Thank you for that. So obviously this is near next to the end of the slide. I do have one more final closing slide, and I'll do my best to make it brief. He don't always strut right to your call, but he will do it 30 minutes after you left. And believe me, you will call in far more gobblers, likely, I did, than you ever kill because of impatience, them seeing you first, them being silent turkeys. It happens, and I've done it many, many times. After all the recordings are available, it'll be sent to everyone. It is a one survey. We need your feedback. That is very important to improve on the programming. And again, soon as I get all those videos, I will send that out. So, and I've been pushing to try to get them done. From my panelists tonight that took time away from their families, and this is not even, this is not their assignment. They agreed to assist me. They right now could be spending time with their family, and they're here tonight serving us. Any final comments from our very dedicated, now this is a number of years, panelists, which I am so very grateful for. And I thank you guys. Eric, you have any closing?
No, thanks for the kind words, Deed. I'm really glad to be here. The only thing that I'll say to all the new hunters is be persistent. Don't get discouraged. I think it took me third year of hunting by myself before I killed my first turkey that I called in, and just enjoy the process. Know that there's a learning curve, and know that you're going to mess up, and that's okay. That's the fun of it is learning. It's okay to get beat by the turkeys sometimes. So have fun with it, and just don't get discouraged and stay persistent.
Okay, John Henry.
Man, Eric, that was great. I'll second what Eric said. It's a learning curve. Don't think it's going to happen right away. And if it does, that's awesome. But enjoy each one because that bird right there will humble you 100% over and over again. And that's why we keep coming back and doing it because it humbles you.
Okay, thank you guys very much. I wanted something to close, and Lori Lee Dovey is a female outdoor writer. She was in my home state. She had many articles in magazines, and one of very few women outdoor writers of the time. And I remember the 80s, 90s, even 2000s, it's been male dominated. So what makes it very exciting for me is that I'm seeing far more women getting involved. And we are still not to the point where we have women instructors, and they are so desperately needed, especially with more females. And so Laurie mentioned this, who will carry the torch and give the gift of the outdoors. It was a dedication to Tom Fegley, who was also a well-known outdoor journalist and writer. And his wife was as well, Betty Lou Fegley. And she said on the day of his funeral, more or less, we're the ones who must carry the torch. We must reach beyond our core to those who, without us, have no chance of ever casting a line, seeing a deer up close, or hearing a turkey gobble. If not you, then who? And we are looking to diversify. We know that we need to be more inclusive. I grew up in an era where we were very reluctant to say anything. We didn't share anything. If somebody asked, where'd you get that turkey? We'd say in the woods. If somebody asked, where'd you get that deer? In the woods. Where'd you get that trout? In a stream. And, maybe it had something to do with that. There was so many out there. But I came to realize, obviously, as mostly a solo hunter through this job, that we cannot hoard it into oblivion. And one of the things that excites me most is when I go to these workshops, I'm seeing a generation that is now social minded. And that has become a blessing because I'm seeing these groups getting together that, yeah, although they're not going to send you to the exact coordinates of their spot, and you can't blame them for that, they are more apt to be social. They're working together. They're developing their own plans. And my volunteers are only a couple of handfuls. So getting people engaged in the outdoors, even if it's not from your own family or friends, or even indirectly through the programming, we have it. And we need you here. And so you folks are the next future generation. Many of you are going to take the torch when people like me, baby boomers, fade out, and I hope for another 60 years. And that right there is a scene on the top of Mount Mitchell. So the highest point east of the Mississippi. And I remember I just gasped when I seen ahead, and it is all about that. Enjoy the season. Don't just see the turkeys. The killing of a wild turkey is anticlimactic, because even after I kill one, yes, I'm so excited, and I also pay homage to the bird, but then you're going home for the day. Enjoy that day. Make it far more the success, far more killing a bird. I digress. Have a great season. Take care of each other. Be safe. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
AD, are we going to answer these questions? We got about 8 of them in the chat box.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. I got caught up in myself.
Yeah, you're about to go ahead and end it.
Thank you, John Henry. Thank you, John Henry. I'm so sorry. Yes, we have a couple minutes. Okay, folks. Sorry, I got carried away. I have been present the past 3 nights for the webinars. Are the in-person workshops worthwhile? There'll be a lot of repeat. Yes, I would say, since these are intended for experienced hunters, it will be a lot repeated. However, it is from different perspectives as well that may have something more. So it's up to you. I'm not saying not attend. Yes, you're welcome to attend. But believe me, you got a huge boost of everything. So if you want to socialize, maybe get a little bit more perspectives, yes, show up. It has been mentioned that baiting for turkeys is illegal. However, you mentioned planting food plots for the birds. What is the difference between baiting and food plots, Eric?
So anything that is considered normal agricultural processes is not baiting. So if you are planting clover, if you are planting chuva, if you are planting something in a season where it is where it would normally be planted, right? That would be normal agricultural process. Throwing out bird seed, throwing out cracked corn, throwing out whole kernel corn, things like that is baiting, right? So if you plant a clover food plot in the fall, that's something that's normal agricultural process, and that clover grows up, and you choose to hunt over that in the spring. That's perfectly legal. I hope that makes sense. If that doesn't answer your question, just ask something again in the bottom of the feed here. Indeed, I see the next one is another law question. I'll just
Yep.
move on to that as well. What are the
Sure.
laws regarding hunting on your own property? Can I shoot turkeys in my backyard? So that's a very broad question as far as what are the laws regarding hunting on your own property. Really, the only difference when it comes to hunting your own property versus hunting somebody else's property is if you own the land, you are exempt from having to purchase a license. However, you still do need to get the license exempt big game harvest report card. So you still have to tag your birds. As far as shooting turkeys in your backyard, that depends if you're in the city limits. And again, having up a bird feeder for songbirds that's dropping sunflower seeds is still considered baiting. So even though you may have those bird feeders up for the cardinals and the warblers and other birds that you and your family may enjoy bird watching, shooting a turkey in a backyard where there's bird feeders would still be hunting within 300 yards of bait. So just note that wouldn't be legal.
Okay, and John Henry, since I'm like in a very philosophical mood, can you pattern a gun with target shot because turkey shells are so expensive?
I start out patterning my gun with target shot, but I do shoot at least one shell at each, kind of at 20, 30, and 40. Yeah, it's expensive. I'm not gonna lie, but you need to do it to know where you are. And if you're in a time crunch, maybe even 20 and 40 yards. But yeah, I start out with target loads to get me close and then finalize there with the shells I'm shooting to make sure I know how many pellets are going down range.
Okay, I've seen gobblers in an area in public land while deer hunting in October. What are the chances I would see them again during April when the season starts? This was at 2:15 in the afternoon to add on your late day strategies tactics. They were hanging out a group of does and bucks. Side note, I had a hiker who didn't even know he was on public game lands walk under my tree and scare all them off is just an example of real life challenges you faced on public land. So to the point, see gobblers on public land while hunting deer. What's the chances of seeing them in April? John Henry.
Those birds are going to be around there somewhere. They may not be exactly there, but right now is a transition period. I would look on a map and find some openings around where I saw those birds at, and that's where I would go and start looking right now. It's a great time to be out in the woods. Not much else happening to go find some turkeys, but they're going to be around there somewhere. But the likelihood of them being exactly right there, not always the best.
Right, and just to give a quick example that I gave the other night, on a ridge I hunted deer in PA in the fall, the birds were always up on the mountain. In the spring, as it was progressing, those hens are seeking out that brood habitat. They move, and they were not up there in the spring. So like John Henry said, close by. Great talk again, guys. I'm new to the run and gun style in the mountains. When you are walking, stopping, and calling, what calls are you using the most? I guess since I'm a running gunner, Eric, you're a running gunner?
Yeah, mostly, but I will sit and wait as well. I try to do a little bit of everything, but
Do you have a call
for me,
preference?
I almost exclusively just use mouth calls, diaphragm calls anymore. It's just less to carry. I will carry a slate style pot call just to switch it up, but that's pretty much all I use are diaphragms.
Yep, and I typically use both or all. The idea is to get him to give you a response. And sometimes changing that call or even the diaphragm can cause him to respond. It's just like humans. They like a certain voice. No question. Thank you for all your time sharing your knowledge. I hope to meet you in the woods someday. Best of luck this turkey season. Thanks, and same to you. What is your preferred call type? I really like the turkey feather decoration. Did you find that in a book or did you come up with it, John Henry?
I saw something like that online, similar, and then I just tinkered around with it and made something special for me. So that's pretty much, that ain't no kit. That's pretty much something I come up with. But man, Facebook is a great place. YouTube, Google, all places to figure out how to do your own turkey mounts.
And what is your preferred call type, John Henry?
Well, I'm a mouth call diaphragm kind of guy. I pretty much have one in the whole time I'm hunting, and typically only break out the pot call when I'm sitting for a while.
Okay, thank you for the webinars. Learned so much. Thank you. Can you use archery instead of a shotgun for taking a turkey in NC, Eric?
Yes, you can. I would encourage you to research broadheads to use for turkeys. I would say that it's fairly common for people to want to use something with a larger cutting diameter, like a Rage or something similar to that for turkeys, rather than, I know that it's become popular to use the smaller single bevel and fixed blade broadheads for deer, but for turkeys, people tend to have more success with larger cutting diameter broadheads, but that's up to you. But yes, you can use archery equipment.
What is your opinion on the saying "call shy"? Any research on that? Well, I do remember that is a that is a term that probably started in my generation. There's mixed feelings on it. Obviously, you can Google it. I don't know if like any major university has done research, but there's different opinions. John Henry, you want to add anything on the opinion of call shy?
It's a real thing. I can tell you, a bird that gets called at a whole bunch tends to start being quieter, tends to start ignoring those calls, may come in but not gobble. I've seen that happen in places where birds get pressured and get spooked quite a few times, but continue to be around. They just become more leery of human involvement, and become more leery of predation, like most things would.
Okay. With that, it looks like we're at the end and we are a minute over or two. Okay, there's something real quick here. Great work, guys. Thank you for putting this together. Much appreciated. Hey, we try to do our best and we wish you the best of luck. And with that, I'm going to say good night, take care, be safe, and hope to see you in the woods. Take care.